Okay, what you are going to get today is just a bona fide real session. Okay, meaning I don't really have an agenda here. When I started this YouTube channel a little over a year ago, my whole point was, excuse me, I'm taking a drink. My whole point was that you're looking over the artist's shoulder, learn what you can. Well, today what I really decided I wanted to do is go back and just, do as I've done several times, go back to the beginning, start looking at what needs to be brought either up to date or corrected, and just work forward until I bump into something that's really egregious that needs to be fixed. Now, before I go there, I will show you the shot I did yesterday, which was pretty emblematic of how I think the production value is going up. The time is going down because this shot was actually rotoscoped. So I just used my webcam to take a video of myself to get a sense of the action. We're talking about this shot. And then I made some obvious adjustments since I don't look like a girl. But yeah, I think the shot went really, really well, and it was pretty quick. So I'm thinking a lot about best practices, how to... It seems to me, maybe if there's a takeaway from this video, it will be this line. It's no harder or more time consuming to do things right than to do things wrong. The difference between people who are really good and people who aren't is that the people who are really good do different things. So the goal is to figure out what those different things are. Not saying I have all the answers, but let's go ahead and just get busy here. What I did so far was I started going through the shots at the beginning of the show and turning on some curves, basically applying curves to these shots. So as you can see, the native color levels are quite high. It really doesn't look like night. So I started going through each of these, and a lot of times it really helps to both turn effects off and on very quickly, and also to, let's say, do an extreme change like this, and then ease back out of it. It's very much like EQ in audio if you're a musician. Okay, what is our high level there? It's really only 0.2, so that's a little concerning. So let's try to push that up a little bit. So what we're wanting to do is darken the darks without making the lights quite so dark. That's not too bad. Okay, off and on, off and on. Because the thing about EQ, if you know anything about audio, is that your ears acclimate very, very quickly. So what sounds like a dramatic change in the tonality of a piece of music or the equalization, within just a few seconds, your ear accepts as normal. It no longer sounds... so you can, crank up the treble, let's say, and you go, wow, that's too bright. But if you keep listening to it for a few seconds, you start to go, well, no, that actually sounds pretty good. So anyway, color's the same way. Color and sound are very closely related in that respect. In this case, what I'm wanting is to take I'm almost wanting to get a halo effect. So my darkest darks, as you can see, the nice thing about Blender is you can just click here and get a measurement, is not 0, but it's very, very close. Okay, so here, you're in the 1.5 region. So now, checking something. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is push this up. Yes, okay, that pushes that up. We need to go a little bit to the west here. And I will get, you see, so there you can see how you can get more control. Now that's too extreme, but and obviously you could also put a vignette graphic over top of this, maybe in overlay mode, in order to create a vignette. So there's more than one way to skin a cat, and frankly, using curves is, in many cases, the worst way to deal with color, actually. Okay, so now this shot is clearly too saturated. So normally when you crunch your lows, let me go ahead and kill these. Let's just go ahead and kind of do a reset here. Get rid of that note. I guess it doesn't want to let me get rid of that note. So here's, okay, so what you find is that when you simply go like this, you get a real jump in saturation. Okay. Now, if we lower it down here, you see that even more. You see how the saturation's really kicking up. Okay. Here we just are getting darker. So obviously, if you did a linear change, you basically get a darker image without the saturation increase. So why is it saturated? Well, it's saturated because of the way that we're lowering the level but crunching more of the color information into a different part of the linear space. Kind of difficult to explain, actually. For most people, the important thing is when you do a curve, if you lower the level with a curve, it tends to boost saturation. That's the takeaway. And as you can see here, just by experimentation, the truth is you wouldn't have to know why it works. But what you'd see is that when I center my crunch here, I get more of a simple darkening, and when I center it here, I get that saturated effect. Okay? So what if it's like right in the middle? It's basically right in the middle, right? So now what I want to do is just looking at the flat picture, which by the way you can click this and turn this off and on, which is good policy. You want to do that frequently. Okay, let's just have let's just embrace this conceit of saying, well, let's put the dot on the grid so that we can sort of think of it in terms of this is not a bad way to work, actually. Is think of it in terms of we actually have 9 positions here. Obviously, we have an infinite number of positions, but it's educational to observe what each of those 9 discrete positions do. So that's not a bad way to learn, actually. So obviously, these are all on the line, so you really only have 3 positions here and 3 positions here. And I point this out because if you're in a process of learning, it's not a bad thing to, it'd be like teaching you how to paint, and someone who's teaching you how to paint might teach you to think in terms of 7 or 9 or sometimes even 4 or 5 different value tones. So you might be taught to paint in grayscale, but you're only allowed to pick from 5 different values, let's say. Well, that's a really good way to learn because you can always blend it later, but it forces you to start to discern between the different gradations of value. And the more you develop your eye, the more you can have a larger number of those different discrete levels of value that you can choose from. So the better you train your eyes, the better you train your ears, the more discernment you gain. So that's why I say here, it'd be good to sort of say, okay, I know what that looks like, I know what that looks like, I know what that looks like, and describe it to yourself. This looks like you know, the sun's blowing in. One of the most significant things about what I see here, and it's probably got to do with the quantization of the color for the sake of compressing it into a video. In other words, if this whole show was comprised of ping sequence, ping image sequences, you probably wouldn't see this level of banding. But that's definitely a concern. That definitely looks like, yeah, and that's an AVI. So that means this is motion JPEG. So we are actually seeing JPEG artifacting there. If you reset, you know, it's there, but you don't really notice it. One of the problems with this shot, in my view, would be that the color in the background is definitely too saturated, and it would be somewhat difficult to isolate that. Now you could use a hue correct. So here with this plugin, what I would do is I would say, okay, from a saturation standpoint, the colors that are in the blue range we want to turn down. So now, unfortunately, you can't, as far as I know, reset this modifier to start out with a smaller number of dots, so you have to manually go in and keep changing them. I guess you could set up a default and then, I don't know, maybe there's a way to copy in a preset, but anyway. So here we're identifying the blue. One way that Blender could be improved would be to have, when you click on here, if there is a relevant modifier in the stack, it would be cool if a vertical line showed up to indicate what color you've clicked on. That would definitely really be helpful in the curves too. But if we turn down the saturation of the blue, look at that. So that's pretty useful. We can dial in just the color range we want to deal with, and then meanwhile turn these back up. In this case, the reds want to be somewhat more saturated. Let's just see. And I'm not really seeing the benefit there. So if we turn that off, we can see that did a pretty good job of isolating just the color range we were interested in. And then now, if we add this effect, the question is this better controlled than it was before we added the hue correction? And I would say, without a doubt, yeah, this looks better. Okay, I may have taken it a bit too far, because remember actually, I think kicking this up too is not too bad. I actually like that. Okay, so, and remember, when it gets dark, your sensitivity to saturation goes down. So, but the net effect to your eyes is sometimes that it goes down too much. So kicking it back up with a separate plugin that isolates the color range you're interested in can definitely be useful. All right, let me just check this. So at this point, I want to pause because this is a pretty pathetic problem to have, but it's a real one, which is that this is this shot was done multiple times, okay, and the drawing of Akari changed. This is actually Akari version 2, and most of the show has Akari version. Frankly, I would say 4. I was going to say 3, but I would actually say 4 because just recently there's been some tightening up in her design that I've been then turning around and sort of propagating through as I redo shots. So the saturation level, not too bad here. I'm going to say, let's see what happens if we go here. Okay, and then let's ease back out of it. Okay, we want more saturation. So let's say this. Maybe too saturated, but let's see. Okay, too dark. So I'm going to say we split the difference between those two. Not sure about that. Let's go in the middle of this square and see what we have. Nope, not enough saturation. So I'm going to say that that feels pretty good to me. And one thing you always want to look at is how it flows from one shot into the other. That feels like the continuity there feels pretty good. Whether this shot should actually have its blues desaturated a bit, I'm going to actually do that just for fun because I'm here. Let's just turn the blues down for a moment and just, you know, kind of an aggressive change here and see how that feels. In totality, I would say I actually do prefer it. Let's go ahead and smooth this out to a more reasonable setting, and then flip it on and off and kind of see if it's helping. Okay, so one thing we do see there, obviously, is, it's kind of interesting actually, is that by desaturating the blues, it causes her hair, because it's less saturated, to look lighter, which is an interesting effect. Not sure I like that. What I wanted to do was diminish the saturation in this area, actually, more on the rocks. But that seems to vignette her a little bit, so I'm going to go with that, actually. Yes. Hold on. Might be too much. Yeah, it's slightly too much. Let's just bring that up a bit. So that's a fairly subtle change. Okay. So now we get to this shot, and the problem with this shot is that her arm is too long. Her arm has always been too long. This shot has... It's a good shot, but that is one long arm right there. What'd you say? I didn't get the last word she said. She just said a sentence to me, and the most important word in the sentence is the last one. So she said, she's not blank. Okay, fourth time. What? Oh, okay. She's not short. Well, that's true, but she's not exactly tall either. I mean, if she was she's what, 5'6", 5'7", right?
She's literally most of the same height as Sid.
You like that arm then?
Yeah,
Okay, all right. Well, if the director thinks the arm is okay, then we won't fiddle with it. What I would consider, though, is what if we brought this shot into Blender, and this would be how I would approach this one. I would map this to a plane, animation and all, and then I would want to have a grid with about this much resolution, something like that. And then I would take this area right here, this whole area, and just push it a little bit in this direction. I honestly think that would be worth doing. Let's jump over to the tablet, and the first thing we have to do if we want to go down that road is we have to look at where the heck was this shot ever even done. So this is shot 3A. I don't think it's a Krita shot, because this would be going back to a time that was kind of before I was really using Krita that much. So there's 3B, so that's the close-up. Okay, yeah, and the main problem with the close-up is the whole thing's too light, but that really doesn't help us with this shot. So now the question becomes, was this Blender or was this OpenTunes? And the answer is I don't know. Okay, that's interesting. In the Blender folder, we do have this shot. And I'm going to guess that probably I'm shooting myself in the foot here, because this was probably originally done in Blender 2.79. So let's not belabor it or worry about it. Let's just open 2.79 and go in that direction. So again, let's open. Okay, Akari sleeping. I just want to see what this is. Okay, so this is the close-up. So this would be the animation. Right. Okay, so that was originally drawn in Krita, and then it was brought into Blender for this animation. Okay, cool. So now let's just see if there is a 3A. It does not appear to be the case. So now this is definitely risky behavior, but we're going to pull up OpenTunes and see what we can find. Alright, so that's the correct project. Okay, yeah, so this is a little disturbing. Not completely shocking, and I really hate when stuff like this happens right on, live when I'm doing a video, but it is what it is. Here's Akari sleeping wide shot, and here's Akari sleeping while the guys climb the wall. So the key shot that we're looking for, it doesn't appear to exist. Okay, let's look in the archive. Okay, so there's 003 Akari sleeping. Let's take a look at that one. Load. That might be the one we're looking for. I wish that, yeah, okay. Okay, now that's interesting. That's definitely interesting. That is not the same shot. There's the one that's in the show. But to be fair, this looks I was gonna say this looks like the more correct version of Akari, so this is definitely kind of interesting. Okay, so just for kicks and giggles, if we stretch that down, whoops. Okay. Yeah, so I know what this is. This is actually the close-up. Okay. So what we're looking at is a different version of this shot, and this is definitely the one we want to keep. Okay. So that can be saved. So let's go up here. And let's just take a look at this one for the heck of it. Well, I knew when I got into the re-looking at these shots that I would be getting some surprises in terms of the assets being potentially nowhere to be found. Okay, the only reason that's a problem, actually, if we take all the color information back off here, the only real reason that's a problem is because I don't actually want to recompress this. Whether it would be worth doing or not remains to be seen. So let's just go ahead and take a little chance. Let's create a new project in Blender, and what I'm going to do, let's go into our let's see here. We need to go into the renders folder and just kind of sort of see what we've got. Okay. This is the archive of renders. Here's the shot we're concerned with. And so I think, let's look here in the archive. I just want to see, aha. Okay. So yeah, this is a really old version of it, but looky here. Looky here. We have a sequence that contains, and let's just toggle through the frames. Yep, she's breathing. She is breathing. So that means we can take, wow, this is kind of a lucky break on my part. Good thing I keep the old stuff around. Okay, so 118 through 216. Okay. So what I want to do now, I'm going to drag this down here so I can see the edit, because I want to make sure that I'm not insane here. So unless I am really mistaken, let's turn these plugins off so it's lighter. That is in fact the same shot. That's it. The only thing that's different is the background. But that's okay. We can work with that. Okay. So we're going to come down here and we're going to go ahead and do what I was thinking. So the way we're going to do it is in Blender we're going to load, sorry, this is 2.79. Let's jump to 2.8. Let's just do this in the most modern version of Blender possible. And actually, before I do that, let me confirm something that I want to see if I know how to do, which is take a plane, subdivide it, okay, and now what I want to do is okay, that's fine. So now the problem is I would have to do this with shape keys, which I believe is right here. Okay, this is an annoyance with Blender 2.8. Look at this. You can't see the... I guess that's okay. I mean, you know, it's kind of half cut off here, but that's all right. Okay, shape keys. I guess the way we would do it is we would go here. Okay, I guess you have to be in... Okay, so there's our basis. Okay. There's shape key number 1. Alright. Let's go... Now how do we get back to the basis? This is kind of interesting. Hello, Blender. Tab. Okay. So now, if we turn this off... so I apologize, guys, but this is decidedly non-intuitive to me. You would think if I double-click the shape key for basis, especially with the value of key number 1 being 0, you would think that the mesh would kick back to its original shape. What this tells me is that I need to hit undo a bunch of times, and here's what actually needs to happen. Okay, and this is not completely unblender-like, so it's not a big deal. What you really want to do here is go like this. 1, 2, 3. Create these keys. I'm really sure this is probably right. Go like this. Yep, that's what you want to do. You want to kind of plan ahead. Create your keys. Okay, and then you can mix and match them all you want, and obviously hit the I key and animate these values so that by hitting I over top of that creates a key, turn it back to 0, hit I over top of that creates a key, and there you go. Okay, so we can do what we want to do with shape keys. By contrast, if I was doing this in Blender 2.79, you can kind of, your mileage may vary, but generally what I've found is it's a little easier in Blender 2.79 for this reason. And I'm big into saying, you know what, let's just be pragmatic here. I don't care what tool I'm using, I just want the tool that works. Okay, so what Blender 2.79 does is it has an animation tab if you have Animal installed, and it could well be that I could turn on Animal in Blender 2.8. I haven't even looked or tried, so it could be that Animal comes pre-installed in 2.8 and I just need to activate the plugin. Okay, but what I would do generally in Blender for a situation like this would be I would not be doing shape keys, I would actually be animating points. And what I would do is I would just go insert. So now what happened just there is that there was a animation key set for every single one of these points. Okay, and then I would just go forward in time, manipulate my image that's mapped to the plane, because remember my video is going to be mapped onto this plane. That's the whole point, is we want to be able to deform it. Okay, and then I hit insert again, and for playback you do need to be in object mode, not edit mode, and then there it is. Okay, so but again, we can do the same thing with shape keys. It's not, you know, particularly any harder, so we might as well embrace Blender 2.8 for this particular problem solving situation. Okay, and by the way, I do plan to be doing more videos with Blender 2.8, and that's why you see a couple changes in my interface. There's really two that are main biggies. The biggest one is this. I've actually got two dope sheets. One of the things that has been a bit of an annoyance for me is having to switch between grease pencil and dope sheet. So because if you're going to a lot of action that you might want to plan out in Blender 2.8 involves not just the grease pencil, although you can do just the grease pencil, but it also involves a lot of times putting empties in the scene in order to use transformations, you know, to just kind of make your job easier. I'm not going to get into how that works now, but I will be very soon. I'll be doing a video really soon on that. The other big change really was that I went ahead and turned on proportional editing in projection mode, because I found that for manipulating these points, that's normally the setting I want. But the dope sheet is the main thing, because it's kind of cool, because I can add an empty, a plane axis, okay, grab this guy, I can map with relations, I can map this particular layer, if you see the bone right there, and now I can, if this was a head, I can have him nodding and use those kinds of animation keys for that. So if I go here, then go forward, rotate this, okay. So yeah, I can change the drawing as well, and of course I could rotate my my points and let Blender calculate an interpolation, but it's a lot easier to just parent it to an empty, so there I'm obviously inserting a key. Well, by having two dope sheets, one that's set to dope sheet and the other that's set to grease pencil, all my keys are right there. And I've also got it carefully set up so that normally it's not that often you're going to get a shot that's more than 120 frames or so. So I've got both dope sheets set up on the same time scale, so they're kind of synchronized. I don't think there's a way to enforce that synchronization. It would be cool if there was, so that if I zoom out here, that this one zooms out as well. So there it is. Anyway, now back to work. We're discarding the changes, and here's what we're going to do. I happen to have my default scene set up in draw mode, so I can just get busy with the grease pencil. So I need to hit tab twice, and now I'm going to hit add an image. And I'm going to add images as planes. Okay? Now, from the other, from here, we are in Render, Archive, Akari's Dream Full Render. So let's get there first. So we're going to go Volumes, Anime, Render, Archive, Akari's Dream Full Render. Okay, and what did we want? We wanted 118 through 216, I believe. Yes, that's correct. So let's grab those. 118 right here through 216. So let's scroll over a little bit. 118 through 216. Okay, we are going to animate image sequences. Let's do diffuse. Actually, let's do diffuse so that we can use lighting in Blender to tweak the color, just for fun. Okay, we're going to use the alpha. We're going to do auto refresh. I think we're good to go. Let's do the import. Okay, so now in this mode, which is viewport shading, what do they call that? Solid. Okay, so you got solid, look dev, and then rendered. Okay, look dev lets you see it. So now there it is, and that is definitely not the correct shot. So I started on the wrong one. So in order to tweak that, obviously we could reload it, but that'd be a kludge. What I need to do is discover what I need to do. So I'm going to guess that it would be in the material settings. It's a texture. So guys, how do we get from, okay, so there's, yeah, I mean obviously there's the texture, the Akari sleeping. If I have to jump to the node editor just to change the start and end points on the video, that's going to be obnoxious. So this is another one of those examples, guys. You can jump ahead if you want, where I'm bumping into one of those oh my goodness moments where what was pathetically easy in Blender 2.79 is well nigh inscrutable in Blender 2.8. So okay, so what have we got selected here? This is context? Okay. Well, I guess this is what I was looking for. Frame start. we want to... No, no, I'm sorry guys. This is the output. This is the output. Yes, 119. This is the output for the shot. I should know that. I know. Sorry about that. But again, what I'm trying to do is get at, without having to go to a shading window, which obviously you can do. I guess actually, come to think of it, in the previous video that I made, I actually, okay, I had forgotten this. Sorry guys. Okay, a previous video I made for Blender newbies, I had added the shading. What do you call these workplace? I had added the shading workplace specifically for this reason, because the settings on an image map to the plane don't seem to show up anywhere else, at least not in a way that's, you know, convenient to work with. So anyway, so my bad guys. So we got start frame. What if we... Okay, start frame is not... I'm having to relearn here on the fly here. What we actually want here is this. See, this is set to an offset of 117. I wonder if this was dropped back to 0 though. Interesting. Okay, so it is not refreshing. So what I'm going to do now, actually let's jump to EV just to make sure we're in the rendered mode, and I'm just going to just start changing these things and see if, I mean, again, this is like, for me, this is a completely normal Blenderism. This is completely normal for Blender, where things that, you know, the obvious thing that should be happening right now is, as I'm scrolling around here, that this should be changing. We should be seeing it scroll through the images. And this has been true with Blender for, I'm going to say, between 10 and 20 years. I'm not joking. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And, you know, what can I say? So let's go back to this, and let's scroll through it this way, and see now everything's screwed up because of these changes that I made. Well, that's all right. We can go with, I kind of remember what my settings were, so we're going to go with 99. Our start frame is actually going to be 0. Because obviously the fact that it's set to auto refresh, it's one of those things where just changing it off and on again might cause it to start working. You know, the offset here should be 118, right? And no, it was actually 116 to 1 to 2. No, it was 118 to 216. So Blender set the start frame to 1 and the offset to 117, which does make sense, I think. But now let's go to here and see what happens. Okay, so now we're on frame 0, and we hit the space bar, and she is breathing, so that's good. Okay, but we don't want this to end at 119, and it's obviously ending way too early, actually. So yeah, I guess it'd be 99 frame, wouldn't it? Well, no, it'd be 98. So let's end it, since we're starting on frame 0, which is generally good practice with Blender. Let's end it on frame 97. So, okay. So now one question I have, this seems quite, this is definitely going to require some sharpening. So let's just acknowledge that right now. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to hit the tab key, and we're going to divide this a few times. I'm going to hit subdivide, and I'm just looking at this to see, that's probably about the level of resolution I want. Yeah. Okay. I would say, let's do it one more time. Probably be safer. Let's do that. Okay, so now that we have that in place, we're going to do what we already decided, which is go into object mode and create 1, 2, 3 shape keys. So the basis is this, and key 1 is what we're about to edit. Okay, and all I want to do is take her arm, okay, I'm going to turn down my proportional editing radius. Now in this case, the fact of the matter is we really didn't even need the shape keys now that I think about it, because we're not going to animate this. But this will be useful to see if, to be able to compare. Okay. So as far as the bed goes and everything, that's fine. Obviously I haven't done a quite good enough job with this yet. And it could maybe make the case that I should have made the resolution a little bit higher. Okay. So what I'm going to do actually here is I'm going to jump out of You know what I'm going to do? I'm also going to give her just a little bit more beef on her forearm. Okay, that feels pretty good. Let's hit the play button and see what happens. And so as you can see, we've got this nice change. The only thing is there's a little bit of curvature here that I think seems a little bit inapropos. It's not that she isn't a tough cookie, because she is. Okay, I'm going to do something radical now. I'm going to actually subdivide this again. Okay, and that actually turned out to be a good move. Okay, that's good. Blender did a really good job of accommodating that change without introducing any weird distortion or anything, so that's great. Okay, go. Let's jump back. Still getting a little too much curve for my taste. So let's go here. And also I really want this to be on individual origins, so I can kind of see better what I'm doing. Okay, yeah, that's cool. Let's pull back a bit. And probably grab these, both of these. So yeah, it's very much a fine-tuning process. Go. I need to hit the G key so that I can then actually scroll my mouse button. Okay. Now that's not too bad. That makes her look like a tough customer without, kind of overdoing it. So now the other thing that we wanted to take into consideration here, let's see, do we have any lights in the scene? I don't think we do. So I'm going to save this because I like what I'm doing, and this is going to be Blender 003A, and let's label this. This is Akari sleeping medium shot. Deformed to shorten arm. So yeah, I'm becoming a little more copious about my documentation. Okay, so now with that in mind, what I'm going to do is just hit put a light in the scene. Let's do a point light. And now let's go to the front view. And okay, let's make this a bit radical. Okay, so now my question would be, why don't we see the effects of the light? Because that's kind of interesting, because remember, I did indicate that I wanted this to be diffuse, not shadeless, and I have to say the color is a little darker, but I don't know for sure if that's actually indicative of any kind of lighting in the shot. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense, but So yeah, let's go to the top view. Okay, so if you guys have some insight, feel free to share. I've got a light, and it appears to be having absolutely no effect, even in render mode, which is strange. So the thing that's suggested is that there's something wrong. By the way, I want to undo that move. That there's something wrong here. It says that my shader, it's diffuse. So quite candidly, I have, and this is again a Blender 2.8 thing, I have absolutely no clue whatsoever why I can't see the effect of my light. So I'm going to delete my light. I'm going to go up here. Let's see. Could it actually have something to do with the camera being turned off? I don't think so. Okay, let's do this. Let's put the light back in. Turn the camera on. Yeah, I didn't think that would have anything to do with it, but stranger things have happened, I suppose. So, okay, guys. So post in the comments if you know what's going on. If this is a diffuse material and yet lights have no effect on it. Never seen such a thing before in Blender earlier versions. Don't know why it's happening in this version. We could try adding a monkey to the scene. Okay. Okay, so now that's an interesting situation. That, the way he looks, or she, since its name is Suzanne, would seem to indicate that the ambient light in this scene is already enormously high. But how can that be when there are no lights in the scene at all? So again, comment for me, guys. Help me out here. If you know why that would be the case, then I'd love to know. I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to go File, New, and I'm going to pick a different. I'm going to go to 2D animation so that I've got a different scenario than my normal one. Okay, and I'm going to go here. That actually didn't seem to help me very much. Let's put in the monkey. Okay, so now that looks like a normal monkey. Okay, so this is the problem I keep bumping into over and over and over. Well, no, in render mode, looky. So what in the heck is going on? Why in render mode does it seem like we have really abundant ambient light? I have no clue. Not a clue. So I'm not going to worry about that now, but again, I seriously invite anyone to go ahead and put something in the comments if you know what the heck is going on, because it's quite frustrating. But that's Blender 2.8. You know, once you hit something that's frustrating, it takes a long time to figure out what's gone wrong and what to do about it. That's been completely the normal case, and it's the reason why I've essentially stayed away from Blender 2.8 compared to 2.79. But that's alright. Let's go here, and what we need to do is kind of start over here on our volumes. Let's go to anime. Sorry, we want to go to render, and we need to make a folder for this. Okay, let's make a folder, and we'll call this 003A deformed, and we'll call this 003A. Okay, and what are we putting out here, folks? We are putting out, should we do pings? I guess we should do pings. Actually, let's just go straight to AVI JPEG so we can color correct it and see if we're at least kind of sort of in the zone here. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to save my work and hit Control F12, which is going to cause this to render. And then we're going to have to, obviously, clearly we're going to have to sharpen it. Actually, maybe not. I've been finding in the anime, the shots look better if I actually sort of blur them a bit. So maybe just getting rid of some of the sharpness will be a good thing. So this is the shot we're replacing. And you can see how her arm is so long in this shot. And it's a little more reasonable in this shot. And looks like Blender is almost done. And what we'll do is we'll just copy this AVI over top of the other one. So let's go here. And the Blender render continues. I'm just looking. Okay, sorry. My bad, folks. The render is actually only about halfway through. And we cannot obviously pop this into the edit since it's an AVI until it's completely done. So now I will take a drink of my tasty beverage. If you know where the term tasty beverage sort of came from, or you know how it was introduced and by whom into the cultural lexicon, you get a no prize, which isn't saying much since I know that I asked the tasty beverage question in the past and did answer it as well. So, what famous director is associated with the term tasty beverage? Okay, we're almost done here, folks, and boom, baby. Okay, so now we're back to here, and what we're going to do is we're going to reach down into the render folder and drag this sucker right into here. Okay. So now we have this, and this one, we want to go to strip. Okay, so obviously we've got the radically different background. That's alright. That's alright, folks. We're going to figure out how to make this work. Okay, so we're going to add a curves modifier, and we're just going to do the same thing we had before. And let's just have a look. Aha! Okay. That's kind of interesting. Let's put this below. Oh, I see. That's associated with that. So I assume that if we delete these, we lose our transitions. Kind of, sort of. That's bizarre. Okay, that's bizarre. But, okay. Okay. So from here to here, we're going to add a transition cross. Here to here, we're going to add transition cross. And of course, it's backwards. Okay, so I believe the C key. Yeah, same thing here. Oh, that one's okay. Okay, so now we pull into here, and I think, frankly, folks, I think this actually looks pretty good and acceptable. This one obviously is really, really, really bright. I'm going to simplify. Simplify, simplify, simplify. Okay, what I want to do is go to really dark. That's probably a little closer. Can we get away with the fact that her face seems to take a little bit of a different change from this shot to this shot? I think we're okay, actually. Okay, interesting thing I just learned. Yes. That's actually really interesting. This is a really useful thing. If you adjust your plugins, your modifiers. Okay, so now, okay, this is such a great example. This is such a blenderism. Okay, so when it's playing back, what I was about to say is, if you adjust this while it's playing back, you can see the changes because it's basically updating every frame. And I tested that by stopping the playback and making more adjustments, and nothing happened. Then when I clicked on this one and made adjustments, something happened. No, I guess I'm correct, though. I'm correct. That is what it does. So in other words, see, no change. So yeah, I think I had a dyslexic moment. If you want to see it change in real time, what you have to do... Okay, right now we've selected the wrong one. So we'll just do this one. Okay? That's not bad. I like that. So the only issue here, and it's a biggie actually, is that her skin is really, really, really gray. The only thing I think we can do, we're going to have to make a slight compromise so at least it transitions between them a little more smoothly. That's probably okay. It's one of those things I'm thinking maybe I want to come back to that. Okay, so let's go here. Okay, so the whole problem with this shot is that Ninja 2's face shouldn't be in such a dark shadow. Okay, so I'm pretty sure this shot, which is 007 redo, pretty sure this was done in OpenTune. So let's just find out. So let's go File, Load a Scene, 007, and see what we have. Okay, yeah, there's your issue. Okay, so let's kill the... I'm just kind of killing things one by one here to kind of sort of see what the heck's going on. It looks to me like... Okay, he is in a single layer, and of course he's been deformed with the plastic tool, so that's cool. So the only thing we really want to do is just change his color. Since he's being deformed by the plastic tool, we can't change it directly in this interface. You have to do it elsewhere. Although, what we might be able to do is just change the color at the palette level. So I'm going to go G key. It doesn't want to let me. Okay, Ninja Flesh. Okay, so let's go back here. Sorry. Let's just see if this can be... Okay, so we we have the same issue in OpenTunes, which is that you can't see the change in real time. That's strange. I've never seen that one in OpenTunes before. Okay, but that's alright. So we want it to be a little bit in shadow, but not like it was. So now let's look at the shadow layer as well, which I believe would be this. Yes. Okay. So my basic issue here is I think the shadow is too dark. Let's turn the alpha down. Let's go with that, because we want to have some contrast, but I just think it was really taken too far in the other version of the shot. So with that, we'll save this, and let's go ahead and render this. We'll save it. In this case, that's an AVI. It's called 0007 redo. So what we want to do is go to render conversions. And what we'll do is we'll call this the same thing, 0007 redo.mp4. Now that's okay. That's 7D. This is 7. Okay, I had a brain fart there for a second. Okay, so this will go ahead and render that out, and then what we'll do is we'll convert it right here. Okay, well, we won't convert it right here. We'll convert it here. Because, and this, by the way, can be deleted. Okay, what just happened? It's saving previewed frames, but it does not appear. Oh, I'm looking at the... I'm sorry, guys. I'm looking at the Krita conversion folder. And, well, okay, there it is. Sorry, my bad. So now that just got converted into an AVI, which means if we copy it here, we should get a complaint. Yes, we got a complaint, and that's because back here, we need to go File, Save, File, New, because those video files are open and Blender won't let us overwrite them. So now we can come back here, and there it is. Okay, so yeah, definitely an improvement. Definitely an improvement. He's a little bit too saturated though, so. Okay, so I would call that a flaw in the render. So, fine. Fine. We'll redo this render. We'll keep the, we'll keep the basic value the same. So what we want to do is we want to go to this right here. Okay. We want to keep the value the same, but we want to have less saturation. Okay, and now that the saturation is diminished, I think we could probably turn the value down slightly. Okay, now let's go back here. Yeah, and a little bit more context. Not too bad. Save all, Control R, and we will save that sucker to the conversions folder, same file name, and then we'll come back later and see how it went, but I feel pretty confident. So with that, having been on here for an hour, I'm going to go ahead and take a break. Guys, there will be more.